I am Prometheus, and what I am about to tell you is the second half of the story whose beginning you already know. The long consequence of the gift I carried down from Olympus in a hollow fennel stalk, and the price that was exacted for it across the turning of many ages. Zeus discovered the theft soon enough. The scent of wood smoke and the faint orange glimmer of hearths rising from the dark earth reached the high halls of Olympus. And when he looked down and beheld the countless points of light that now answered the night, where once there had been only cold and silence, his rage was not the sudden, thoughtless fury of a lesser god, but something slower, colder, and far more deliberate. He did not strike at once. He allowed the gift to take root among you, allowed the first vessels to be baked, and the first spears to be hardened, and the first stories to be told beside the new fires, so that when at last he came for me, the full measure of what I had done would already be visible across the world. They bound me with chains that Hephaestus himself had forged in the deep places of the mountain, chains colder than the void between the stars, and stronger than any force I could summon against them. They dragged me to the farthest edge of the known earth, to the high and wind-scoured cliffs of the Caucasus, where the rock is older than the Olympians, and the air itself seems to remember the wars of the Titans. There they drove the iron through the living stone and through my flesh, fixing me against the mountain with my arms outstretched and my face turned forever toward the sky I had once walked as freely as any god. Then the eagle came. Every day it descended with a cry that tore the thin air of the heights, and every day it opened my side with its talons and fed upon the liver that grew again each night so the torment might begin once more at dawn. There was no end to the cycle, no mercy in the turning of the sun or the slow procession of the stars. I do not speak of the pain itself in order to move you. Pain is only pain, and in time, even agony becomes a kind of weather. What remains most clearly in my memory is the long silence between the eagle's visits, the unceasing wind, the hard, clear light of the high places, and the knowledge that far below me, the world I had altered was changing still, generation after generation, while I remained fixed in place like a warning written across the stone. Years passed, and then decades, and then centuries, measured not by the counting of men, but by the slow rise of cities where once there had been only caves, by the first ships that dared the open sea, by the first marks scratched into clay that would one day become writing. All of it grew from the single coal I had sealed inside a green stalk of fennel and carried down in secret. And still the eagle came. Throughout those ages, I held one secret that Zeus desired more than any other knowledge in the world. I alone knew the name of the woman whose son would be greater than his father, a son strong enough, in the fullness of time, to cast even the king of the gods from his throne. Zeus demanded that name from me again and again. I refused. The chains grew heavier with every refusal, and the eagle's visits more prolonged, yet I would not speak. Some knowledge I had decided long before the first chain was forged is not for the powerful to own. At last there came a day I had foreseen across the long darkness of my imprisonment. A man climbed the mountain. He was still young, though already marked by labors that would outlive him and become the measure by which later ages judged strength and endurance. His name was Heracles, son of Zeus, and yet more deeply human than any of the deathless ones who watched from Olympus. He looked upon me without the pity that softens the eyes of the weak, and without the fear that freezes the hearts of the merely mortal. He saw only what needed to be done, and he did it. With a single arrow, drawn and loosed in one clean motion, he struck the eagle from the sky. The great bird fell in silence, and the long cry that had marked every dawn of my torment ended forever. Then Heracles set his strength against the chains that Hephaestus had made, and the iron that no god had been able to break shattered under the force of a mortal who had simply refused to accept that suffering should be endless. I fell forward onto the stone, free for the first time in an age whose length I no longer tried to measure. Heracles did not ask for thanks or for any sharing of the secret I still carried. He said only that no living thing, Titan or mortal, should be made to suffer without end, and then he turned to leave the mountain as quietly as he had climbed it. Zeus accepted the release, though it cost him. A bargain was struck in the high places, a life offered in exchange for a life, an immortality willingly surrendered by another so that my torment could be brought to a close. I do not speak the name of that sacrifice lightly, nor do I claim it as my own victory. It is enough to say that even the gods, on rare occasions, find themselves required to pay a price for something that resembles mercy. I stood at last upon the high rock and looked down across the world. Smoke still rose from the hearths. The gift had not been taken back. You had kept the fire and made it your own. I was free, yet I was no longer the being who had once walked the halls of Olympus with easy defiance. The long years had burned something out of me and left something quieter and more enduring in its place. The understanding that power is not only the strength to take what one desires, but also the strength to endure what one has chosen, and the still rarer strength to refuse. That is the second half of the story. The fire was given. The price was paid across the turning of ages, and in the end, it was a mortal hand that set a Titan free. Remember both parts when you look into the heart of the flame, the gift and the cost, the theft and the long release. They are not two stories. They are one.